Hey, I'm Jonathan. Welcome to Rather Be Riffing. So for those of you that watch the channel, you know how much I love high-end guitars. However, what you may not know is that I love guitars across a wide range of price points. I believe a great guitar is a great guitar regardless of price. I think an awesome example of this is the PRS Silver Sky SE edition. So today we're going to check out what this thing can do. So the pursuit of a Silver Sky SE all began when I received a comment from one of you asking me to review some more budget-friendly gear. It got me thinking, I love PRS guitars, I love playing Strat guitars, and I've always been curious about the Silver Sky model. So we decided to take a trip out to Brian's Guitars, where I played nearly 50 Silver Sky examples, and I learned a ton in the process. And so in this video I'll provide some sound samples of the guitar, I'll talk about why I chose the one I did, and what I was looking for in the selection process, and also trying to avoid in the selection process. I'll share my observations about the playability, fit, and finish of this particular model, and what some of the variances I noticed across the dozens of examples that I played. I hope this can help inform your choice if you're in the market for one of these guitars. And lastly, I'd love to know what you think of this guitar. I'm trying to decide whether or not to keep it in the stable long term. So let me know what you think. So let's dive into the sound samples. I'm going to start out in position 4, which happens to be my favorite setting on this guitar. I'm going to play some more traditional styles early on in the video, and I'll expand out into some other styles later on. And for my rig today, I'm using a stereo rig. I'm running 2 Blackface style amps, a Blankenship Twimplex, and a 2-Rock Bloomfield drive. Those amps are both set clean, running into 2 Shure reactive loads with Friedman 4x12 impulse responses. For the rhythm track, I'm using some light overdrive from a Vemaram Janray, and for the lead tone, I'm stacking a Tube Screamer with an exotic Soul Driven. So let's check that out. So next I want to talk about the playability, fit, and finish of the guitar. As for playability, the guitar plays really well. I haven't changed the factory setup. It came from the factory with medium action. The action on the low E string is coming in around 3.5 millimeters, and the action on the high E string is coming in around 1.75 millimeters. I noticed some of the examples came in a bit higher than that. Very few came in lower than that. I think the medium action really lends itself well to string bending, and if you're the type of player that likes to get a little flesh under the strings when you bend, I think you'll feel right at home on this guitar. So the guitar has a more vintage style fingerboard radius. It comes in at 8.5 inches. And if you're concerned at all about string bends and the bends fretting out with a rounder fingerboard radius, I haven't experienced any issue with that whatsoever. You may have noticed some big string bends in the intro music as well as the last sound sample, and the notes ring true. And to just demonstrate that further, I also love that the guitar, despite being more vintage inspired, has 22 frets. And I find that extremely helpful. I like to use the full range of the guitar, and in that last sound sample you may have noticed me reaching up there on the 22nd fret for a string bend. So in this next sound sample I'm going to demonstrate more of the beautiful range of position 4. I'm going to play a clean rhythm part and overdub a harmonized melody, and in both cases I'm using a little bit of light overdrive from a Vemaram Janray. So let's check that out. As for the fit and finish, the neck is done in satin, and it's very thin. It feels closer to raw wood than it does to having a finish on it. The neck is fairly chunky, but very comfortable. The fretwork is pretty good. I don't hear any intonation issues on the guitar, and no dead spots. The body finish is done in polyurethane, and it's really flawless throughout, and I'm a big fan of the gray. Some of the minor issues I did notice about the guitar is when I got it home, I noticed some of the copper tape underneath the pickguard was actually protruding from the pickguard. That was a very easy fix, although it did require removing the strings, removing the pickguard, tucking the tape back in, but now you cannot see that any longer. The other issue is that when the frets were crowned and polished, the sides of the frets weren't polished very well, and you can still see grind marks from the fret leveling. The tops of the frets are polished smooth, so it doesn't affect the playability, but in certain lighting I do notice the non-smooth sides of the frets. It's just a cosmetic issue. If that were to bother you, that's something to look out for when you're trying these out in the stores. And then the last little quirk I observed with this particular guitar is that I noticed that the holes in the tremolo block are routed a little too small. The string ends, the balls of the strings actually get stuck in the block, and it was a bit frustrating when going to change strings. A quick solution I came up with was if you take a spare guitar string and just poke it through the top, that'll easily pop the existing string out. Let me know if you've experienced that issue and if that solution works for you. Otherwise, I'm really happy with the playability, fit, and finish of the guitar overall. All right, so let's move on to the neck pickup. I love the neck pickup tone on this guitar. I used it in the opening solo. And in this section, I want to demonstrate the range of the neck pickup across various gain stages. So I'm going to start out clean, then I'm going to kick on a tube screamer, and then I'll kick on a boost. And I'm going to use an exotic soul driven for that. And if you're looking for that classic Texas blues SRV neck pickup lead tone, I think this next sound sample can inform how well this guitar can do that tone. So let's check it out. All right, so let's stay in the neck pickup and switch to some more rhythm type of playing. I'm going to pedal off the low E string with my thumb and do some embellishments on top of the chords. And this style of playing makes me think of Philip Sayce. And I noticed recently he seems to be playing Silver Skies more and more. And that makes sense to me because I think this guitar does that type of sound really well. So let's check that out. All right, so now that we've covered some more traditional styles, I'm going to branch out into some of my own style to showcase how great this guitar can sound regardless of its association to any particular genre or artist. And to do so, I'm going to go to position 2 for that quintessential S-type quack sound that we've all come to expect from this style of guitar. So let's check out what that sounds like. Time to give some love to the unsung heroes. The middle pickup and the bridge pickup. For some reason, these tend to be less popular pickup options on an S-style guitar. However, on this guitar, I find them incredibly usable. And to demonstrate that, I'm going to start out with a Vemoram Janray for some light overdrive, and that's going to be stacked with a fuzz pedal. I'm going to start out in the middle position with the volume rolled back about halfway, which is going to clean up that fuzz. As I continue to play, you'll see me roll up the volume to 10, switch to the bridge position, and you'll really hear that fuzz come alive and then start to roar. So let's check that out. I'd also like to take a moment to talk about the tremolo setup on this guitar. It comes from the factory decked, if you will, where the tremolo is flush to the body. There is no ability to bend up, only down. And it really requires some force to get any movement out of the trem setup. I think the trade-off there is that it really helps with tuning stability. When bending the strings, you don't get any of that trem movement when it's set that tight. However, it's not as expressive. You're not going to pull off Jeff Beck maneuvers with this style of setup. You need to float it for that. However, I do find it useful, and you'll see me using it on occasion in this next sound clip. So look out for that. So in this next demonstration, I'm going to toggle through all 5 pickup positions so that we can hear them in the context of a single piece of music to help compare and contrast the different tonal qualities. As for pedals, it'll be the same setup as the last sound clip. Vemarem Janray for some light overdrive, stacked with a fuzz, and I'll manipulate the volume control to go from clean to various levels of distortion and fuzz. So as I mentioned at the start of the video, I played near 50 Silver Sky SEs during my visit to Brian's Guitars, and I learned a ton in the process. In fact, I played 9 different examples of a maple board gray body alone. In this next clip, I'm going to do an A-B comparison between the 2 gray-bodied maple board SEs that I favored. And afterwards, I'll explain why I chose this one, and also what I learned in the process comparing so many of these examples.
Second one.
Of 9.
2 of 9.
So why did I choose this particular Silver Sky? They both sounded great to me. This one sounded a little more compressed. The other one was a little louder and had more headroom and dynamic range, but they both sounded great, and I couldn't make up my mind which one I favored. So it really came down to 2 other factors. One was the tuning stability. I noticed this particular example after playing it for hours stayed in tune the entire time, whereas the other version, the tuning was slipping over time. And then the last reason was this guitar played a little bit better, and that had to do with the action. I measured the action of both guitars, and the action was a bit higher on the other one. That probably could have been adjusted, but I didn't want to take any chances, so I settled on this example. And I've been really happy with it and haven't looked back. All right, so now that we've been through all the sound samples, I'd love to know what you think of the guitar. I'm trying to decide whether I want to keep it in the stable long term, so your observations would be much appreciated. So what did I learn after playing so many examples of the Silver Sky SE? I think there's 5 things that I've reflected on here in the process of choosing this guitar and making this video. The first one is that I think guitars can be amazing at any price point. After playing around 50 of these Silver Sky SEs, I really connected with this particular example, and I've really enjoyed playing it, and it's inspired me in new ways, and that's priceless. Number 2, I think having too many options isn't always helpful. As I mentioned, I played almost 50 of these guitars, and I actually played 9 Mapleboard gray versions, and I think that was a bit excessive. It actually turns out that this was the first Mapleboard gray version I played, and I really connected with it off the bat. I played the other 8 for peace of mind, but my advice would be, when you connect with a guitar, trust your first impression, trust your intuition. You don't necessarily need to go try every version under the sun to be confident that you've chose the right one. Number 3, I think the biggest thing to watch out for in this model is tuning stability and those sprouted fret ends. So really take some time and caution there when shopping for one. Number 4, what I love most about this guitar is the pickups. I found all 5 pickup positions to be incredibly useful and well balanced, and that isn't always the case in S-style guitars. So I think the pickups are really well dialed in. And lastly, point number 5, I think this guitar really shines regardless of which genre you're playing and or which artists are associated to this guitar. So don't let that hold you back from trying one. So that wraps it up. Thanks for watching. A special shout out and thanks to the crew at Brian's Guitars for being super helpful and fun as always. Special shout out to Trevor, who helped me navigate the sea of Silver Skies in the back room. You may have noticed the endless amount of gig bags behind me in the A-B comparison, so that was much appreciated and a ton of fun. And lastly, though furthest from least, a special thank you to Rose, my love, for spending the day with me, filming, and being so supportive, and bringing so much fun to the process. Thank you. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking or subscribing to help get the content out to others that may find it useful as well. In the meantime, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.